You don't want to miss this episode. We're going to dig into beneficiaries. How do you avoid probate, taxes, and fees at death? Hi, everyone. Welcome to Control and Compound with Darren Mitchell. I'm your host. And joining me today, as always, Christina Wyatt. Christina, how are you today?
Hi, Darren. I'm doing great. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well. I'm excited for this because this is a topic people don't pay enough attention to, and it's really important. So yeah, I'm looking forward to this conversation.
Me too. But before we get started, I just want to remind you, if you are listening on your favorite podcast platform, please make sure you subscribe and leave that 5-star review. And if you're listening or watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit the bell button so you always know when new content's coming out. And don't forget to follow us on social media at Control and Compound on TikTok and Instagram.
Perfect. Okay, so where do you want to start today? Right from the top?
Yeah, I really think we should start at the basics. You know, what is a beneficiary?
Okay. So yeah, there's the basics. Beneficiary is just when you die, who's going to get your stuff, right? That's who you name. That beneficiary gets your stuff. So when you die, your life insurance or all your other stuff, who do you want to have that stuff? So that's really what a beneficiary is. But I guess which leads to the question, like, why would you name a beneficiary?
Yeah, so on life insurance, when you're completing the application, and at any point really you can make the updates, you have the ability to name a beneficiary. So you don't have to, but you have the option to name a beneficiary. And there's some key benefits to naming a beneficiary on your life insurance policy. The first one is that it's going to bypass probate. That's a pretty big benefit, right? We've got some fees associated with that. It's going to bypass probate. And the reason it's going to bypass probate is because it's not going to hit your estate. So instead of it going to your estate and then going to the designated beneficiary with life insurance, if you name the beneficiary on the application, it is going to bypass that estate and the tax-free check is going to go straight into the hands of who you've intended it to have, right? And that speeds things up as well. So we can get life insurance proceeds in the hands of beneficiaries within weeks of somebody passing away. That's quick. We all, a lot of people know that, if you've ever been an executor, those things take time. Like dealing with an estate can take time. And putting that beneficiary down will bypass that estate, bypass that those delays for your beneficiary to receive those funds. So it can be very, very beneficial to name a beneficiary. Now, if you don't name it, so like if you've done your application or you've done your forms and you don't have a beneficiary listed, it's automatically going to default to the estate. So that's what's going to happen. So Darren, why don't you kind of go through what happens when the beneficiary is the estate?
Yeah, well, a lot of listeners will know of someone or been involved with some family member that have dealt with an estate in Canada in the last number of years. And if you have, you can appreciate the time, effort, and costs associated with that estate. So if it goes to the estate, you're going to have probate fees. Like in Ontario, that's like 1.5%. You're going to have some legal fees. You're going to maybe have some accounting fees. You could have executor fees up to upwards of 5%. So you start adding up all these costs, and it's easy to get to 5-10% of the estate, or in this case, the life insurance. So if it was, $1 million death claim, do you really want 4, 5, 6, 7, 8%, going to fees, et cetera, instead of your loved ones? So, that's a downside. But there's definitely times when it makes sense to name the estate as beneficiary, because there's all kinds of complicated families up there and planning and taxes that need to be paid at death. Estate equalization is another one, Christina. We talk a lot about, if one child's going to get the business or the home or the rental properties and the other child isn't, how do we do that? And great, we can leave the life insurance to one child, but if the life insurance is a fraction of the value of the rest of the assets that the other child's getting, that's not fair. So maybe in that case, the estate would be the beneficiary. And again, we're not lawyers here. We're just telling you from our experiences. Sometimes it makes sense for the estate, but it's really a case by case basis. But really, it's the fees and the time delay. Like it's 6 to 18 months, sometimes 24 months, depending upon the province you're in. So instead of, like you said, your beneficiary's getting the money in a week or two, it could be a year or two, and they're not going to get the full amount.
Yeah, I want to make a No, just a point around this as well is that some people might think that if the life insurance policy is stating the estate, but in your will you've decided to name a beneficiary instead, that doesn't automatically mean that it's going to happen that way. So if there is intentions to have a beneficiary on a life insurance policy, so they can argue it and things can happen inside the estate afterwards. But the easiest way to do it is to make sure that you have that beneficiary listed if that's what you've intended to happen, and that will beneficiaries, those things all kind of line up. You want to make sure that they all kind of, they're all the same in the plan. We don't want differences between the two.
Okay. So what's next? What's the next question? We're going to talk about, this is a great one, Christina. Why don't you take this one? What is a contingent beneficiary?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And it is what I call it is a backup beneficiary. So it's your backup. If something were to happen to the, like if the person that is named as your beneficiary has passed away, which, if you're looking at spouses and stuff that travel together, it is possible that you were to pass away at the exact same time. You can actually name a contingent or backup beneficiary. So if your beneficiary has passed, when this death benefit proceeds are to be paid, they'll immediately look at if there is a contingent. And if a contingent is there, they are going to pay out that death benefit to the contingent beneficiary. Keep in mind with this as well, if you do not name a contingent beneficiary, that again is going to default to the estate. So if you know that it's supposed to go to your husband, and if not, or spouse, and then it's not, if they're no longer living, you want it to go to the kids, well, the good idea to do, the thing you should do is have those kids listed as the contingent beneficiaries on there. So another question that we get a lot of is and another option that you have. So there are a couple options when you're putting your beneficiary down, and one of them is revocable versus irrevocable. And what is the difference there? What is the difference between the two?
Yeah, simply put, revocable is you can revoke your beneficiary at any time, or you can change it, right? So you can say, great, this is my beneficiary today, next week, next month, next year, 10 years. You can change that beneficiary, change the percentages, etc. An irrevocable beneficiary, you can't change it. You can't do anything with that policy without the permission of the irrevocable beneficiary. So in other words, you can't take out the cash value. Nothing you can do with that policy without the consent of the irrevocable beneficiary. So where we see an irrevocable beneficiary the most is when a judge orders the person to put the irrevocable beneficiary. Oftentimes in a divorce, there'll be a life insurance amount, and the judge will say, okay, this spouse has to keep insurance on the other spouse with an irrevocable beneficiary to protect that spouse, that he or her doesn't change the beneficiary after they get separated or divorced. So just something to be careful of there, but we're going to use revocable 99.99999% of the time. And then the other question we get a lot, Christina, and people sometimes don't think of this. It's just, oh no, I'll just leave it to my kids. But can you name a minor as a beneficiary?
Thanks for listening so far. If you're watching on YouTube, make sure you like, subscribe, and hit that bell button so you always know when new content is coming out. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please leave a 5-star rating and leave a review and subscribe. And if you are interested in learning more, please visit our website at controlandcompound.com to sign up for a free education session with one of our wealth coaches.
Yes, we can name a minor as a beneficiary, but if you name a minor as a beneficiary, you're going to want to add a trustee. So anytime that your child or the beneficiary is under the legal age, so 18, 19 in some provinces, you're going to want to make sure that you list a trustee as well. And that trustee is going to be the person that's going to hold those funds in trust for that child until they reach the legal age, right? So typically who you're going to see listed there is who you've put in your will that will be taking care of your child. Should something happen to you, you're going to want to list them as the trustee. And then that way they know that it's designated for that child. But they're going to be able to access it because now they've got a trustee that's going to hold it for them until they reach that legal age. So trustees are super important as well if you're naming minors. Another big question. So we've talked a lot about personally owned policies for family members and whatnot, but we definitely set up lots of life insurance policies with corporate ownership as well. And with corporate ownership, we get the question, okay, I'm going to get my corporation to purchase this policy, pay for it. Then I'm going to put my spouse down as the beneficiary so that they get it. Can we do that, Darren?
No, we can't.
No.
So
Don't do that.
have I seen a lot of people I've dealt with in the past when I check out their beneficiaries all the time? It's like, oh, I see you're doing something here you probably shouldn't. But yeah, you're just basically incurring you potentially incur a shareholder benefit there, where a corporation's paying for a product or something that's going to benefit you or your family personally. Could be a taxable benefit. So on any corporate policy, you need to have the owner, the payer, and the beneficiary all listed as the corporation. Now, again, there could be rare exceptions to that, but generally the corporation is going to be the beneficiary, and then the corporation will receive the death benefit, and then the corporation will flow the money out, probably most of it all tax-free or all of it tax-free, to the surviving shareholders. So you cannot name an individual as a beneficiary in a corporate. It's got to be the corporation that's paying and funding it.
Yeah,
Okay.
you want everything kept on side.
Okay, everything kept on side. Now, the other one, we said this one recently, Christina. It's like, why do I need a beneficiary on my critical illness policy? I'm not going to die.
Yeah, that's a good question, because it is. Critical illness pays out when you're not, when you haven't died, when you've lived. So why do I have that on there? So critical illness policies, disability policies as well, sometimes will have an option that you can add to them. That's called a return of premium on death rider or extra. It's just an extra benefit you can pay a little bit more for. And what that's going to do is, let's say, you pass away, you've got a critical illness policy and you pass away, it will return the premiums that you have paid to who you've left as who you've listed as the beneficiary. So that's what they're asking about there. It's not for the critical illness benefit. They're not going to get that, you have a $100,000 critical illness benefit. That's not what your beneficiary is going to receive. Your beneficiary is going to receive the premiums that you've paid into the policy back. And that's only if you've selected the return of premium on death when doing, when purchasing the policy. So that's why you'd see that there. Next question, which is really good. We talk about it a lot. One of the added benefits of having life insurance is that it's creditor protected, right? How does a beneficiary come into play when it, comes to creditor protection?
It is the most important thing when we talk about beneficiaries with respect to creditor protection, because basically the Insurance Act is life insurance is protected from creditors if there's a family member, and they're very specific on the family member, right? It's like spouse, child, grandparent, parent. So if it's one of those family members named as a beneficiary on a personally owned policy, okay, then you have creditor protection. Now, again, when we say creditor protection, generally creditor protection, if you were circling the bankruptcy sewer and three minutes before you went bankrupt, you put all your money into this. Well, no, there could be up to a year look back and stuff. So there's been a couple of court cases on this, but generally, if you name 99% of the time it's spouse or child named as a beneficiary, you have that creditor protection. Corporations, we're not going to have that creditor protection because we talked about corporations needing to have a corporate beneficiary. And that's why ideally for the creditor protection in a corporate policy, we want that in a holdco or a company that sort of has some built-in creditor protection anyway. But that's basically it. Anything to add on creditor protection, Christina?
The only thing is we've talked about life insurance beneficiaries, but there are beneficiaries on other products as well. We talked about critical illness, but you do see beneficiaries listed on RSPs, tax-free savings accounts, those types of things. How does that all kind of fit in with the...
Yeah, great question. So with creditor protection, we talked about life insurance, but you can have an RSP, a non-registered investment with an insurance company. Okay, so it's an investment, but it's with the insurance company. However, all investments with insurance companies typically have a deferred annuity status. In other words, eventually you can turn this into an annuity if you want. Now, 99.99% of people aren't going to do that, but a deferred annuity means the annuity is a life insurance contract, so you get that creditor protection with your non-registered funds, with your RSPs, with basically any money in there where you have the same beneficiary as a family member, you're going to have that. That's huge, Christina, for business owners and real estate investors. You know, you get a couple $100,000 in mutual funds and you get sued or go bankrupt and it's gone, versus if you put that couple $100,000 into insurance or an investment with the insurance company, like a mutual fund called, or seg fund, same idea as a mutual fund. You know, that's a big deal, creditor protection for business owners and real estate investors, because you want to keep what you have. Okay, Christina, so we learned all about these beneficiaries, the importance of them, how it works, what we got to do. So how does someone go to update their beneficiary or check on their beneficiary to make sure it's accurate? Because I tell you, a lot of people buy a policy and it's 30 years later and they have no idea who their beneficiary is. So how do I check it and how do I update it?
Yeah, that's a great question and something that people should be thinking about more often. I'm a firm believer in estate planning when you're younger. Don't wait until you're older, right? Estate planning should be done as soon as you have an estate. As soon as you have an estate, you should start estate planning. And a big piece of estate planning are these beneficiaries, like a huge piece. So knowing who the beneficiaries are on your life insurance policies, your RSPs, like all of your accounts, you want to make sure you know who's listed on those as beneficiaries. So you can get that from in our office, we can easily get that to you. No problem. They can pull up a current summary to show you who your beneficiary is on any of your accounts. Whoever you're working with should be able to do that for you as well. So I do encourage everybody to go out and do it. Like, now's the time. Go out and do it. If you haven't done it in a while, go out and do a double check of your beneficiaries. Make sure that they're all listed accurately. If it's not listed the way you have intended, super easy fix. It is a form. We can update the form. You put your signature on there. You send it up. It gets updated. It's on that file. It can be changed again. Things change. Like, as life goes on, circumstances change, and you need to have these updates done. So don't just put it to the back of the pile. If you want what's intended to happen on your death, you want your estate wishes fulfilled, then you want to make sure that these things are all kept up and accurate. And it's super easy to do. We're talking a form here, right? So ask the question, complete the form if you need to.
Love it. Okay, well, that's the importance of beneficiaries doing it correctly. You work hard for your money. You work hard to leave something to your family. Let's make sure you leave it to the people you want, and not government taxes and fees. That's it. Thanks for watching. Thanks for listening. Have an awesome day. Thanks for listening to this podcast. If you're listening on YouTube, please like, subscribe, and hit that bell button. If you're listening on your favorite podcast platform, please leave us a 5-star review and subscribe. And if you want more information, check out our website, controllandcompound.com, and you can sign up for an education session with one of our wealth coaches.